in Chester. Well, I think it was actually not far from in sort of around lockdown time. And I just love it. Like, I like old things anyway. I'm a bit of a, I like finding bits of pottery and things, and beach combing. I like
Yeah.
finding things, and I just couldn't believe it. It's still intact. It's obviously just been thrown away. So then I started using that as a bit of inspiration to be throwing some more bottle forms on the wheel. Because naturally I go towards quite round.
Hello and welcome to Chester Artbeat. Today I have the joy that Kate Smallwood is joining me here for the interview series for 2024. Now, Kate is an art teacher and a potter who works from her garden studio in Chester, creating rustic and functional forms. Kate graduated in 2007 with a BA Honours in Applied Art, specialising in ceramics, and has spent her career until recently teaching in further education and secondary schools, as well as working as a community arts practitioner. More recently, Kate has enjoyed setting up a studio and connecting back to clay, and now splits her time between teaching at a secondary school in North Wales and working in the studio, creating her own work. Using a potter's wheel to throw pieces, Kate also mixes all her own glazes, which are inspired by the wild and rugged landscapes and coastlines of England and Wales. Curved organic forms are a love of Kate's, and she finds the wheel is a perfect way to create these. Recently, when out walking Bertie the dog, Kate discovered a small pork pie inkwell, which was well over 100 years old and had a crude finish. This has led to the exploration of the different and smaller forms which can be created upon the wheel. Now, Kate will be exhibiting in Bishop's Lloyd Palace, one of Chester's fabulous black and white hidden buildings that you probably haven't been into unless you've been there for an event. And it is a space where you'll be able to both view and purchase her wheel-thrown stoneware clay, and meet her in person. So this particular venue, Bishop's Lloyd Palace, is only open on the Saturday the 6th and the Sunday the 7th, but as such a beautiful hidden gem, it's well worth coming out on one of those days on Watergate Street to meet her. So now, without further ado, I get to welcome Kate to have a little chat with her about some of these fabulous ceramics and perhaps have a bit of a glimpse into what we can expect. Hi, Kate.
Hello.
So great to have you here, taking some time out from your busy time, both teaching and in your studio. What sort of a day has today looked like for you?
Not too bad. Tuesday's a day off from school, so I'm usually in the studio, but I'm talking to you today. I might go in there in a little bit. I might have a little bit of time.
A bit of a play.
Yeah, before I pick the kids up from school. So
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, I was looking at your Instagram and saw a bit of a sneaky video into behind the scenes in the studio. So just so people can get an idea of some of the things you might be up to on a Tuesday.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's me sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Tell us
That's
all.
me unpacking the biscuit firing. I think that was yesterday or the day before. Yeah, so I've only got a little studio, but it works for me at the moment. And opening the kiln is it's like a mixture of dread and excitement at the same time, because you never really know how the firing's gone, obviously, until you open it. The biscuit firings aren't usually too bad. Sometimes you get a small hairline crack or something like that, but the glaze firings can be quite nerve-wracking. I remember when I was at uni, like for months, I would just open like the kiln to brown pots, as you're mixing all your glazes and things. So
Yeah. Oh, there's a
luckily
glaze.
now I don't have that very often. It's usually quite a nice experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't told you this yet, but my auntie, she was actually a ceramicist, a potter,
Oh, amazing.
and she taught as well. So had to go on her wheel a bit. But yeah, having a kiln in what was her cellar, her studio was her cellar.
Yeah.
And
Are you
that
very good at it?
experience,
Were you good
no,
at
I'm
it?
terrible.
Anybody can learn because it's a technique. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of failure. but that's why clay is such an amazing material, because you can just recycle and reclaim. But yeah, anybody can learn. It does
Yeah.
take a lot of practice, I think, that's all.
And well, I say I'm terrible. I think it's that I only had like 1 or 2 goes. I was very good at like hand creating, you know, when you mold it
Oh, like
almost.
hand building.
Yeah, and hand build it and like
Yeah,
paintbrushes and tools and water and stuff. I
yeah.
just I've only had a go on a wheel like once or twice and it just went bleh.
Yeah, my daughter likes coming in and playing with bits of clay and things. And my sister's a potter too, and when she's at my sister's house, she's always getting the clay out, and she likes doing that, like sticking things in and smoothing things off with water, and just having a bit of a play, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like Play-Doh for adults, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very therapeutic.
So what got you into using clay in the first place then?
My sister was a big influence because she was a little bit older than me, and that was the sort of route she took when she was at college. But
Hmm.
um, I went to college and did a BTEC 3D design, and clay was the material that I sort of floated towards. And then when I went to university, we were sort of exposed to a lot of different things, at glass, blacksmithing, metalwork, and clay was the one thing I was good at. Um,
It
so
sort of
yeah,
chose
that's
you then.
hey.
It sort of chose you then.
Yeah, I think because it was there because of Lou, my sister, um, it was naturally the sort of path I went, but I was better at that than the other things I had to go at, even though I
Mhm.
enjoyed playing with lots of different materials and things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I find clay it's just the malleability of it. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
It's slightly mesmerizing, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's the
That
sort of rhythm
where
that,
it goes
especially
round
with,
and
yeah, especially when it's speeded up, I think. That turning, people like to watch the videos. Um,
it's a really pretty process. And there is something about behind the scenes. I love how many behind the scenes you get because you just go, it was a lump of clay. And
yeah,
now, and the precision that goes into it in some
yeah,
ways, you know, you're measuring and you're feeling it.
yeah.
At the
I
same
think
time,
people don't realise sometimes what a lengthy process it is,
mhm,
um, and also how much the clay transforms from that point to its final firing. So obviously, even before the wheel, you have to prepare the clay, you wedge it. You've got the making process, which is you on the wheel or you when you're hand building. It then has to dry out before it goes in for its first firing. And then once it's been in for firing one, it then has to be glazed, and then it goes in for firing two. So it is a really lengthy process and can be quite unforgiving at the same time, because you can go through all of that and
uh-huh,
then have like a complete disaster or something in the kiln. Um,
mhm,
and obviously you've got to start from scratch again. But I think that's what makes it a really amazing material, is that transformative process that it goes through. And it is quite sciencey as well, which people don't realise. There's a lot of shrinkage. Obviously all the glazes, that's all chemistry. Even thrown on the wheel, it's the centrifugal force, and
mhm.
it's a really amazing
This is the teacher in you.
material to work with. Yeah, I
So
sound really clever, don't I? I'm really not, but
no, well, you are. You're clever in your own field. You're
yeah,
clever
yeah,
in
maybe,
understanding how clay works. So
yeah.
you're the expert. I mean, you've done this for how many years and studied it, and now I guess there's nothing that matches real life experience. As you said, when you first started throwing, it was the dread of opening the kiln,
Yeah,
and sometimes it'd be absolute brown disaster in there.
yeah. I
I
think
guess.
I've obviously been teaching for a long time, but then when I set up the studio, it is getting back into it. And although the throwing, it's more muscle memory, that is quite quick to pick back up again. But with mixing all my own glazes, I did have quite a few disasters, because I didn't want to buy them shop bought. Which are the glazes are amazing that are shop bought. But I did want to do my own glazes, and I did have quite a few disasters. Where the clay was running, and you have to sort of work out, you know, how to control that, and there's lots of other things that can go wrong. But I think it makes the practice, or your practice, more worthwhile then, because you've gone through that developmental process.
And there's
Which
a
is
real
really important as a
understanding.
creative person.
Yeah, and there's your personal understanding of exactly what works with what, but it means that you can control the outcome, because I have here some of the images of those final, like, fired
Yeah.
engraved items, and even the texture and the way that the colours take, and the it's not a solid tone, is it? There's
No, it is
movement and
amazing. And actually, I could never probably get that exact finish again. So I think that's really exciting, that even though the glazes are very similar each time they come out,
Mhm.
the texture would be slightly different, or the colouring would be slightly different depending on where it was in the kiln or how hot it was.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
so like these have a slight, well, I can't tell if it's the candlelight that means they're
no,
slightly
it does. So
coloured,
there
but
is darker sort of
variation.
areas. Yeah, lots of variation. If you can see,
Does that help? Because there's three that look the same
yeah,
colour, but they look completely different at the same time.
yeah. So the sort of centre pot, and then the one to the right and the one in front and the one slightly behind on the left, that's all the same glaze, but where it's slightly thicker, it will pool and create a darker colour, or if it's thinner, you might get speckles of iron coming through from the clay body. And
Oh,
where it is in
those
the
orange
kiln,
spots are. They're the orange from the
yeah,
iron.
so that's the iron in the actual clay. Yeah,
Those
you
little
can see them
spots.
there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really nice because it's so it's such a natural process.
Hmm.
And obviously all the glazes, they're all natural, minerals and things. So it is
Okay, so
amazing.
what goes into a glaze then? Because obviously you've got some greens and some slightly more sea blue
Yeah.
green
So
going on here.
generally there's sort of a base glaze which would be made of maybe like some potash, china clay. You need a flux, which is the sort of glassy part of the glaze, and then you would add your colorings, which would be, most of them are metal oxides, and you can buy like amazing stains and colorings now from lots of the suppliers. If you want a specific color, there are colors which are hard to achieve.
Mhm.
But the suppliers nowadays are so amazing, and you can get sort of any outcome that you want, really. I think probably 30 or 40 years ago it was a little bit more limited on what you could achieve, but
Or at least
it's
what
an
you could
amazing
achieve
process.
without being completely rich and traveling the world and working out the science for yourself.
Yeah, although
But
actually
in general,
I've got some friends who use a lot of ash in their glazes, so they'll use tree ash, and they create the most amazing finishes on pots and things. So it's an amazing process.
yeah. Is it something that you said, the colours and the tones, that they're reflected from landscapes, from the coast and from
Yeah,
so forth? Like, what is it that draws you to those colours specifically? Because you could have gone with oranges and browns, you could have gone with
yeah,
like reds, or the really expensive back in the day as it was,
yeah,
or something. So what?
yeah. Um, I'm quite a earthy person, a
Mhm.
bit of a hippie at heart, I would probably say. I like being outside in my garden. I've got a little veg patch. I try and go in the sea as much as I can, or a little trip to the mountains. And those sort of blues and greens and greys are probably sort of reminiscent of those places that I like to go.
You weren't just copying our background, so
No, although it's very beautiful.
and
I did have a quick look on the video with the graphic designer the other day. Um, yeah, I think those probably colours that I'm drawn to, because they're quite calm and they do sort of reflect my sort of connection to the natural world and nature. And that's something that I want to sort of capture in my own work. I'm not a really bright person. I'm never really drawn to oranges and reds or yellows. I always sort of go towards the more moody, subtle tones.
okay.
So I think that's probably why I chose those for my own work.
Mhm. No, that makes sense, because so often our work is a reflection of the things that we appreciate, we desire,
Yeah,
and how it's, I guess, your pots are, in part, they will always be a part of you and your creative
Yeah,
process and your desires, even though you might be doing things to suit what the market wants and so forth.
yeah. I
But like
think, like there's a picture there of
lovely,
some barnacles further up, but I'm
absolutely.
always the one sort of on the beach that's like, bum in the air, looking down to see what I can find, or, I'm the little weirdo photographing the mushrooms or
Yeah.
um, so I do really draw a lot of my inspiration from the sort of places I like to be, and that's mostly outside, in nature. And having the dog helps because I, just take him out constantly. I'm always in a wood or something.
I love your pinboard. Is that some of the things that you've seen or created that are
Yeah,
inspiration?
they're older. It's actually a little bit more full now. I don't think there's any updated pictures on there, but I don't know if
Oh, there you go. We've just told you what to put on your next bit of content, some updated pictures.
is there a picture further up? I'm not sure. I
I
did
don't
update
think.
it. I've put some sketches and
Hmm.
um
I mean, there might be some in some of these carousel posts that have extra pictures in, but they
yeah,
might
I
be
think
the pot with the
actually.
greys and the greens and the blues.
Yeah, I think I did put one up somewhere. It might be on
On Facebook, perhaps.
could you click on the picture with the basket?
The baskets
Yeah, in the
in
garden.
the
My
garden.
very wild garden. Is there a picture on there? Oh no. Um yeah, I've put quite a lot of sketches from my sketchbooks, where I've looked at
Okay.
textures in rocks and
Ooh,
when I've been on the beach and things like that, and they've sort of helped me with the shapes and the colours that I might want to create. And I like foraging, so I've got blackberries there. I grow a lot of my own fruit and veg, and actually the ceramics complement that really well.
fabulous. I was just seeing if any of the other gardeny ones had it behind since you thought they might. I take it this
Yeah.
is some of the process you were talking about where
Yeah.
not everything survives.
No, and I think there's actually a comment on there from a lovely potter say like with shocked faces of all those pots going in the recycling, but I think on that one the bases were a bit too heavy and I'd
Okay.
not turned them enough. So the best thing would be to reduce waste is to not fire them,
Hmm.
and just if you put them in water, you can reconstitute the clay and use it as if it had been bought from the suppliers. And actually it's better when it's been recycled because it's got a higher water content, so it's a little bit easier to use again on the wheel.
Oh,
um
okay.
yeah, so it's quite, it's being a bit more sustainable as well, I suppose, with not firing things if you're not happy with them.
Yeah, and so you said part of the process is preparing the clay, and you've just mentioned to us there that the things that were the rejects in the recycle bin before they're fired, that they've got more water content, so they're easier to work. So do you have to somehow like add water into the clay before you even put it on the wheel? Because I see you get it wet
Yeah,
to
so
help the process, but tell us a bit more
yeah.
about that.
So if you weren't happy with something you've made, or I do have failures on the wheel sometimes if my head's not quite there, they go into a big bucket of water,
Hmm.
and the clay sort of goes to a slop. Really, it's like what we call it, a slip, very thick slip. I sort of take the extra water off, and then the clay gets put onto plaster bats, so
Okay.
sort of white plaster bats, and the plaster will draw the water out of the clay.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you
because
just
it's
have
porous,
to make
isn't it?
sure you get it at a good consistency. Obviously, if you draw too much water out, then it's too dry. You have to put it back in the bucket. And then we would wedge it back up. So it's almost like a bit like baking. If you were kneading bread, there's a specific couple of techniques that you can use. And then it's ready to be used, weighed out, and you put it back on the wheel. So you can just I mean, the only thing is it takes a little bit of time, but you're not wasting anything. There's no waste, which is really important, I think, especially nowadays with everyone trying to be more sustainable and things in their practices.
So is clay something that you buy as a, like I remember we used to get in school buckets of like ready mixed clay in effect. It and it was ready to mold. And they had
Yeah,
consistencies of it. Or do you get it as a powder and have to mix it up yourself? Or how does that come into your
so
like process from
y-
like beginning right through to
yeah.
putting it on the wheel? We've heard more about the firing and the glazing and so forth, but how do you start it to get it onto the wheel?
So there's some amazing supplies in Stoke. Obviously, Stoke is like the home of all the pottery.
Oh yeah, the pottery.
And yeah, you can buy all sorts now. Years ago it was sort of porcelain, stoneware, terracotta, and now you can get you know, subcategories in those. You can get specific clays for throwing or hand building, or you know, there's so many different types. So I just use a stoneware throwing clay, which works for me, and I buy that from a supplier in Stoke. And they deliver it. The only thing is it costs quite a lot because it's so heavy. The delivery costs are quite a lot. You can obviously go and buy it, and we don't live too far away in Chester, which is quite good.
Yeah, so local girl. So here's, once you've got that in, the stoneware, what makes stoneware your preference? Why do you enjoy that over, say, terracotta or porcelain or?
It's a good all-rounder, so you can use stoneware for quite a lot of you know, different techniques or methods. It's quite hardy, so it's frost proof once it's been fired up to a higher temperature, and it can go outside. I like the colouring as well, so the different bodies will affect how the glaze would look. So if I used a whiter body, the glazes would look slightly differently. Terracotta is a very low fired clay, and porcelain is quite expensive because obviously it's that higher quality. It's also quite difficult to work with.
Okay.
It takes a lot of sort of practice, and it can warp in the kiln, and you know, for what I do, it probably doesn't suit my, you know, aesthetic and things like that, but it's very beautiful clay to work with, for those that manage to sort of, you know, tame it, if you like. And really good for lighting because you can roll it really thinly so the light would shine through the body of the clay. So
Well, that's clever. Whereas you do a lot of
a little bit more rustic.
yeah, rustic, and hence why you were talking about finding that really rustic old inkwell. So
Yeah.
come on, there's a story behind this. And
Yeah,
is it
so
something I can bring up to show you with it, or do you have an image somewhere? Or
I don't know. I have actually got it. Do you want me to get it really quickly? It's
should we
over here.
pause for a minute?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
So it's a Victorian. It's called a pork pie inkwell. Obviously because it looks like a pork pie.
Doesn't it just literally?
And it would have come in a powder with a little cork in the top.
Okay.
And they were a penny. They were a penny to buy. So they were thrown very quickly. They're very crudely made, if you can see the base. And I found it walking the dog in Chester, well, I think it was actually not far from, in sort of around lockdown time. And I just love it. Like, I like old things anyway. I'm a bit of a, you know, I like finding bits of pottery and things, and beach combing, you know, I like finding things, and I just couldn't believe it. It's still intact. It's obviously just been thrown away. So then I started using that as a bit of inspiration to be throwing some more bottle forms on the wheel. Because naturally I go towards quite round curved shapes, very organic, and I started having a little play around with some more shapes like this, and you can see, you know, with that one I tried to throw them bigger, but I think earlier there's some ones where I've tried to, and actually it was quite hard to recreate. There's a good picture actually.
Oh, there's a little one.
Yeah, and that one, yeah. So they're not they're very similar sort of shape, but you can see how I've been inspired by that. Yeah, I just think it's amazing. So, and I as well, I think, oh, who had that?
The
Like,
history.
who owned
Yeah.
that? Who bought it? What did they write with the ink? You know,
Yeah.
I follow some amazing people on Instagram who've, you know, obviously do collect bottles and Victorian, and go to amazing places where the Victorians threw all this stuff away.
Oh gosh, I remember the old-fashioned water bottles. They were made of stoneware, weren't they?
Yeah. There's so
Water.
many. I quite like the glass Victorian bottles as well, but I love Chester history, and I mean, I might even try and develop some bits into my work one day, but that was just like a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
Amazing
And
little
so that
thing.
was where you moved from just doing the really round
Yeah,
shapes to having some straighter sides and more corners.
yeah, just to see. And I think that's quite nice about your work. You can just sort of go with it. And I've not really put much pressure on myself to sort of, because I'm doing it alongside another job, I haven't got that pressure of, oh, I need to be making you know, a body of work that I need to sell, I need to make loads of money, and you know, I've had time to develop and make mistakes and play around and see what works and what doesn't, and it's that sort of freedom, I think, that's worked really well for me at the
To be
moment.
more creative because there's less commercial pressure.
Yeah. I mean,
More about the
obviously,
process than the
yeah.
output, maybe.
And that commercial aspect of me selling is coming more naturally, I think, now. So
Mhm.
opportunities are coming, and
We
people
have one here.
are
It's
lovely.
I say that my little bar that says sharing your screen's just got in the way. Put that down there.
People
Here
are
you are.
lovely, and I've been selling my work, yeah, on Folksy, and I've done did an event a couple of months ago with a lovely local florist, and I sold lots of pieces. So now I'm sort of seeing what's
Mhm.
working for me and where I want to sort of settle more in that commercial, field, if
Yeah.
you like.
So the question is, do you have any mugs? Because I saw a couple of beautiful mugs on your Instagram, and I am looking for a new mug.
I will have some mugs at Artbeat. I've made some ready.
Fabulous.
My own worst enemy, because when I started out, I was just giving stuff away, and people were like, "Can I buy it?" I was like, "Oh no, I'll just bring one in, in work, or I'll drop one after." So I was giving a lot of stuff away. So I have been making, and now I'm building up a stock, which is
Yeah.
what I need to be doing.
But I also love the fact that you said because you've had that space to create, to make the mistakes, to develop, to go, oh, I want more of this. I'm inspired
Yeah,
by that. I'm going to get the glaze into my own unique colours and
yeah,
my style of painting it, that it means that there is now very much a Kate Smallwood Ceramics feel. It's unique.
yeah.
It's,
Oh, that's nice. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's similarities to other bits of work and ceramics
yeah,
I've seen, but at the same time, you can see that theme coming through
yeah.
different pots and
Yeah.
shapes and so forth.
And I think that's emerged more naturally, and I'm sure my work will develop and change, and it has already in the past year. Um, but that's
What's your
like
most recent change then? What have you done to?
the floristry
Mhm.
part of it. So I was asked to make a piece for a local florist, Jackie, and she wanted a large bowl for some demonstrations that she was doing. And there seems to have been a lot of interest now in that, so I've started to develop that a little bit more, and I've got some lovely opportunities with some other local florists that may be coming to fruition. So that's that I not really intended to go in. I didn't really intend to go down the floral
Mhm.
market, but I've actually really enjoyed making them because it's something that's out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, and
um,
they're a lot bigger. So you
yeah.
mentioned before about weighing the clay. So I'm guessing that was a bigger weight of clay on the.
Yeah, and it's very different from throwing, the smaller things, they're sort of 200 grams. The mugs maybe might be 400 grams of clay, and then some of the larger bowls, could be a kilo, and it really changes on the wheel then. And you do have to practice, and there's a lot of failures because, the more clay you're working with,
Mhm.
the harder it is to center the clay, and
Okay.
obviously you've got to think about the size of the wheel head, and it removing it can obviously warp, and it becomes a little bit more difficult, a bit more challenging, but it's like that with any material, I think.
Yeah.
The larger you go.
And then it's also, I suppose, getting that new muscle memory in place because if you've only made small, but then
Yeah,
I guess the extra weight. Have you got big muscles from?
I don't, but I remember at uni, our technician, he was quite stocky man, and he made it look really easy. But he always sort of said, and the lecturers would say, it's your weight rather than the strength in your upper arms. Obviously, you are lugging clay around and things. But if you can use your weight to center the clay rather than your sort of
Oh.
muscles, if you like, then that
It's
really helps.
So it's a bit like when people walk up the stairs. If you sort of pull on the banisters, you're using your little muscles. It's much harder. Whereas
If
if
you
you
use your
legs, you just
core,
have
it
to
will.
step up, and your
Yeah,
big muscles do the work easier.
yeah,
Just shifting into it, so moving your body weight against it means
yeah.
you actually work as hard.
I think if you do, obviously, if you are built a bit more hench over here, then that would probably help.
Get
But
those rugby players in
no, I mean,
in the
I'm a
studio.
strong I'm a strong woman, and I can, lift, and I do a lot of things independently in life. I've got two kids that I'm used to, lugging around, but so I'm not a spindly thing. I do. I am strong, but you know, your body weight does help.
I
Essentially.
never realised. So you actually have benefit for having a bit more weight behind when doing larger items.
Yeah,
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 well,
yeah,
good. That's fabulous.
yeah.
And then in terms of the sort of things that we can expect at Artbeat, I imagine you're not probably going to have your potter's wheel in situ in Bishop's Lloyd Palace. That might be a
No,
little,
no.
but
Yeah, so I'm going to bring a range of items so people can have a look and have a feel. It's really important to like pick up a mug or
oh, I'm so
you know,
glad
a
you did
pot.
that. I was
Oh
brought up
yeah.
with that. Look with your eyes, not with your fingers. But I'm a really
Well,
tactile person, and obviously there's safety in children and being taught how to do it right. But as an adult, there's times when I'm like,
yeah.
I want to. When I hold a mug, I like to hold it,
Yeah, no,
like it
I am
feel
totally
right,
in
and
agreement. When I go to events, I always try and buy a mug. And I'm just picking them up constantly. I always ask permission first.
yeah, of
But I
course.
think like I like quite a heavy, I'm a mug person,
Hmm.
and things that are too dainty for me because I'm quite sort of bull in a china shop would break. So I like to sort of check that it's the sort of right weight and shape
Yeah.
and holds my big brew that I have in the morning. Yeah, I think that's really important. And you know, ceramics is tactile, so why wouldn't you want to touch it? It's not
And
like
there's
a
something about the ridges in the glaze, isn't there?
yeah,
They get where the glaze is thicker, they're sort of shinier, and then you get
yeah.
those you can see on it some of the little ridges that you've got
It's
in
nice,
them.
I think, as well to sort of see marks left by the maker. So yeah, I'm not a factory. I don't make en masse. They're all handmade. So it's nice to see a little you know, ridge or rim or a throwing ring maybe.
Uh-huh.
And then you know, people know that it's been made by somebody and by somebody's hand, you know. So yeah, please touch obviously carefully. But I'm
With
hoping
love.
people will have a little feel of the glazes and the forms and
Mm.
you know, I'll be there to chat and talk about you know, my work, and if they want to talk about clay or glazes, and if I can chat, I will.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
And are you going to have any? You said you put a load more sketches on your board. Are you going to have any of your sketches or
I
your
might do.
development behind the
Yeah,
scenes
might
stuff?
bring a sketchbook
That'd be
and
good.
maybe some. Yeah, that'd be quite nice to accompany it. So yeah.
Yeah, because that development process, as you say, people don't realize how much goes into it. So being able
No.
to showcase, like you have today, some of the process
Yeah.
and the development, and even how the ideas become the shape of the pots, like
Yeah.
your little ink
Yeah. Yeah.
from here to there.
Yeah. Definitely. Yes.
Oh, well, it's been a real lovely time to talk to you today.
Thank
And
you
I
very
just
much.
wondered, outside of Chester Artbeat, if people want to know more, obviously we've got, as we showed, there's the Instagram and hang about. What I didn't show, and we'd got the reshare that. We've got the Facebook as well. So your
Yeah.
Kate
So
Smallwood Ceramics there. So
yeah.
there's the similar videos and so forth. But I know some people aren't on Instagram, so that can be useful.
Yeah. So what I put, I do predominantly use Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I think when I post on Instagram, it does share it.
It
To the
across. So
Facebook
people
page.
who are
Yeah.
on one or the other, they can see. And obviously,
Yeah.
you're very active on here with more followers and so forth. And
Yeah.
then that's the link to the folksy shop. So if you find Kate Smallwood Ceramics on Instagram,
Yeah.
the shop that we showed you just here, is there anything else that you've got going on or coming up that you'd like to share about?
Well, not at the minute. I'm a bit busy in work. We've got exam season, so
Gosh, yes, yeah.
yeah, once all the moderating's been done, because I teach GCSE, so once all the moderating's done and things like that, I'm going to meet some florists, which will be quite a nice.
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah,
collaboration this year that you've been doing the bowls and stuff.
yeah. So I've got a couple of florists that I'm meeting to sort of see how they could use some of the vessels, and that'll be nice little collaborations. And then we'll see in the summer. I think I'd like to do some more events, but I'm yeah, once the academic year's out of the way, that sort of that between January and June, that's the sort of takes up as more of my time than you realise. I think even part-time, it you know, it's quite sort of
You can see why people plan ahead and work out and schedule things a year in
yeah,
advance, can't you?
yeah, definitely,
Those
yeah,
windows of opportunity. But then
yeah,
you've been building your stock up, so you've got more available, and we're going to have the ability to come see you on that Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
So thank you so much. It has been a
Thank you.
pleasure, and really love the little facts. Sorry, my words went there. I was just thinking of the little iron spots on that pot. You know, some of the things that you don't appreciate. I always wondered if you dropped on like a little glaze or something. But no,
Yeah. I suppose you wouldn't know, would you? I think sometimes I'd probably sort of reel it off as if people already know, but nobody would know that unless you're familiar with the material. But hopefully people will like to chat and I can sort of talk about processes and stuff, which would be great.
share some more of your wisdom and your expertise, and just yeah. For instance, some of the things that I saw on your Facebook just now, perhaps were some of that preparation. Just seeing, is this the mugs we might be seeing?
I'm not sure. Are they? I'd have to look at the date, but they are very similar.
This was about
in
a week
size.
ago.
Yeah, so they would be coming out the kiln because it takes a little while. The process, obviously, I have to make enough to fill the kiln because it costs quite a lot to hire.
Yeah, so you want to, and so you put all these layers in and stack them up.
Yeah. So with the biscuit, you can sort of stack it as much as you can. With the glaze, you wouldn't be able to because they would stick together.
A bit like when you're icing a cake, you can't
Yeah,
like
well,
touch
yeah,
each other.
yeah. Similar.
Fabulous.
There's a lot of baking similarities actually between clay and baking.
It's an art and a science, isn't it? It's the two.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
For everybody on Chester Art Beat, we're going to be back with more interviews coming up. In the meantime, all the way through until July. And obviously the whole event, although you can meet Kate in Bishop's Lloyd's Palace from the Saturday and the Sunday, we actually do launch on the Friday, which also is open to schools. Hey, perhaps you can bring some of your students down for the schools day, Kate.
Maybe, yeah. They would actually really like that. Maybe next year's GCSE students would find it a little bit inspiring.
Yeah, all the artists around
Chester.
Yeah, so wonderful, and we will catch you again soon.
Thank you.